Hello, and welcome to Flip the Coin Onto Its Edge. I am your host, Michael Papaw Newton. I've studied philosophy, classic and ancient mythology, spirituality, science, religions like Christianity, Judaism, Wicca, Kabbalah, Buddhism, and Taoism for over 20 years. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, leave all preconceived notions, opinions, and beliefs at the door. Open up. This episode is number 7, and the title of today's episode is At What Specific Scale Are We Discussing This Energy? This episode explores the energy of the universe, highlighting that it isn't a deity or divine entity, but rather a fundamental force in the universe. It examines humanity's place within the spectrum, encouraging listeners to reflect on how we relate to this energy from both scientific and philosophical perspectives. Just a reminder, tap the button to follow this podcast. Now, into our show. God capitalized is a forbidden word in science. Still, if we define an intelligence superior to ourselves as a deity, we have to arrive at two kinds. One, the intelligences of the universe, and the other, the God capitalized of the infinite future we have just been discussing in episode 6. Interestingly, these two very different forms of intelligence correspond closely with the Greek idea of deities as managers of an already existing universe, on the one hand, and the Judeo Christian idea of a deity outside the universe on the other. In contemporary Western religions, it is said that God created the universe and that God can interfere with the universe to suit himself. However, the universe cannot interfere with God, so that unlike the situation in science where action and reaction are equal, in this scenario, action and reaction are not equal and opposite. This lopsidedness leads inevitably into a logical quagmire. One is impelled by such concepts to ask a question which turns out to be unanswerable. The question of why the universe should exist at all. As a distinguished theologian Soren Kierkegaard has admitted, what we cannot understand is that God, who has no need of the world, should have reason to create it. But this Morris is avoided when it is seen that God exists only by virtue of the support received from the universe, as we spoke of at the end of episode 6. Why do humans feel driven to inquire into matters as far removed from daily life as these? People have raised questions about the meaning of the universe in all the ages, long before there was any chance of answering them in a sensible way. The ancient civilization of Mesopotamia, the Greeks, and our modern society dating from medieval times onward have all built their temples and churches as a continuing expression of man's irrepressible instinct to discover his relation to the universe at large. Modern science, as expressed in orthodox biology, denies the validity of this instinct. From the publication in 1859 of Darwin's The Origin of the Species, there has been an insistence that it is all a childish illusion, an insistence drummed in with such persistence that people's ideas have become cloudy and confused. Yet, if one summons the courage to shut one's ears to the clamor and take a calm look at the facts instead of an introverted picture with man crowded in on this particular planet, a prisoner confined to a tiny corner of the solar system itself, but a speck in our galaxy, and our galaxy but a speck in the universe, we have an open picture with life spread out throughout the heaven, and quite possibly with life controlling much of what happens everywhere throughout the universe. Because of the general harshness of physical conditions, most of life is confined to microorganisms, which can thrive in environments that would be impossible for large multi-celled associations like ourselves. Occasionally, however, where conditions soften, as they did here on the planet Earth, some groups of microorganisms were able to build themselves into larger associations. And as the building process continued, more and more life forms emerged throughout the process we call evolution. The separation, about 570 million years ago, between the Cambrian and Precambrian, long recognized by geologists as a crucial transition point, marks the moment when life in more complex forms first secured a grip on the Earth. From that time onward, the Earth became a rarity among planets, more and more so as terrestrial plants and animals increased in number and complexity of form. The Earth became still more a rarity, a jewel among planets, as evolution proceeded from fish to reptiles, from reptiles to mammals, to monkeys and apes, and from these to man, a creature who, in the words of biochemist George Wald, turned back on the process that generated him and attempted to understand it. With understanding came power, the power to annihilate as well as the power to survive. Other animals were slaughtered, at first from necessity, later for sport. Other subspecies of man were totally annihilated, and then the power to destroy became directed inwards against our own subspecies itself, but always arrayed against the desire to destroy was an opposing instinct, an urge to build that created the churches and temples around the world. Alfred Russel Wallace expressed the instinct in words, describing it as a mysterious sanctity whereby truth is invested as the highest of virtues. Others might find the same feeling in the vistas of Woody Guthrie's "This Land is Our Land, Your Land," as it transports us. The protective instinct in man took a long step backwards from 1860 onwards. Whether Darwinism, with its philosophy that opportunism is all, was the cause of the political philosophy of the time that overwhelmed the world from 1860 onwards, or whether it was machinations that spawned Darwinism, is hard to say, for the two went hand in hand, leading with mounting inevitability to two world wars and to a situation which today looks increasingly like a one-way journey towards self-destruction for the whole of our species. I am not a Christian, nor am I likely to become one as far as I can tell. Yet my disbelief in Christianity as a religion does not prevent me from being deeply impressed by many of the sayings of Christ. a saying that has puzzled Christians themselves. Many are called, but few are chosen, ceases to be puzzling if it is interpreted in the present context. Many are the places in the universe where life exists in its simplest microbial forms, but few support complex multicellular organisms. And of those that do, still fewer have forms that approach the intellectual stature of man. And of those that do, still fewer again avoid the capacity of self destruction, which their intellectual abilities confer on. Just as the Earth was at a transition point 570 million years ago, so it is today. The specter of our self destruction is not remote or visionary. It is ever present with hands already upon the trigger. The issue will not go away, and it will not lie around forever. One way or another, it will be resolved. If the earth is to emerge as a place of added consequence, with man of some relevance in the cosmic scheme, we shall need to dispense entirely with the philosophy of opportunism, while it would be no advantage to return to older religious concepts. We shall need to understand why it is that the mysterious sanctity described by Wallace persists within us, beckoning us to the fields and vistas of Woody Guthrie's song, If Only We Will Follow. That's all we have time for. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Today we finished studying the universe, philosophically and scientifically. Now we'll move on to rule number 3 in the game of life and see what we need to do to make our life better. I advise you, don't believe anything you hear in this podcast. Test it out in your life. It has to work for you. Believing means there's already an element of doubt. The secret to success is to know the laws of life, not to believe in them. When you test these laws and principles, you will come to know. For your own benefit, make room for compelling new ideas. This will allow you to understand and evaluate the teachings more effectively. Quick reminder, click the button to follow this podcast. And remember, God woke you up this morning for a reason. Now go out and find out why.